Estamos aqui com mais um Hunter Entrevista e dessa vez com um assunto extremamente especial que tem sido muito falado nas rodas de conversa de recursos humanos e dos principais executivos aqui no Brasil. Eu trago aqui para falar sobre isso Brent Dewar, um convidado internacional que é head da Curland Américas e foi vice-presidente de marketing e vendas da GM. Hi Brent, how are you?
Very well, Anna. How are you?
I'm great. It's so nice to have you here, and I want you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, I'd love to, and thanks for the invite to be on the interview with you today. As you mentioned, I am heading up Curland International for the Americas, and we are a executive consulting firm specialized in the auto industry, and we do a variety of features that we work with our clients in the area of retention and acquisition of top talent for their firms. So it's allowing me to draw from my automotive experience. I spent approximately 30 years with General Motors in a variety of global capacities. Most recent was Vice President of General Motors for Chevrolet, which we operated 130 countries around the world. So it was a great job and great experience. And it's great to be back in Brazil. I spent 6 years in Brazil as the head of sales and marketing for General Motors here in Brazil. So I'm looking forward to our chat today.
Okay, so we are going to talk about the 5 pillars today. And this is a very interesting subject, especially when it comes from the idea of retaining and hiring people from a different perspective. We've talked about this subject already in Brazil, especially in some very specialized magazines here. And people come to us to know more about that. And now we have you. Of course, the brilliant idea came from you, from your team, and I want you to share with us the methodology and how you apply this to the executive world.
Sure. Well, I think one of the challenges we all have as leaders is to not only find the best talent, but to retain them in the firm. And so there's various stages that one goes through in their career, and I think it's an often used expression that people are your greatest asset. But I think at times we get so caught up in the aspect of the business that we forget that mantra that once we work so hard to recruit them, whether they're an early recruit to start off their career or you get them mid-stage in their career or later, all stages are very important. And so what we did was we looked at why do people stay with a firm? For example, I stayed with General Motors for 30 years. And why do some people leave the firm? And so we started to go through the methodology of asking the questions, and there are many reasons. But what we found over time is that it really comes down to 5 things. And if you don't mind, I'd like to take you through the five pillars that we refer to, because each one are important. And if you can focus on the 5 pillars, I think you have a chance of strengthening the retention. If it's not a pillar, it becomes a flight risk. So that's the opposite of retention. And both are challenges for us as leaders, as HR leaders, as the business leaders of the company. As I said, to not only find the talent, but to retain them and make them satisfied and be productive so that you can achieve your business results.
And I know all of the information comes from a lot of research, right, Brent? I know you have contact with so many candidates, professionals, and you put them into some questions and then realize the answers. And now I want you to describe me, what are the 5 pillars?
So what we try to do is either candidates that are currently in market or candidates when they're exiting, we try to capture what were the reasons or what are they current thinking. So the battery of questions follows along the lines of alignment, I would say alignment. And what we find is the reason people stay with a firm or leave a firm, one of the pillars is leadership. And what they define as leadership, we try to capture as the immediate person you're working for, your chefy, exactly who I report to. And it also can mean the leader of the company. And so what we find is if the person is directly aligned and enjoys very much working with their immediate boss and with their leader of the company, well, that's a yes or a high value, then that becomes a very strong retention pillar. Conversely, if I love my leader but I'm not crazy about working with my current boss, they may be a balancing act. If the answer is no, then that becomes not a retention pillar, it becomes a risk of flight. But people don't stay or leave just for one attribute, but leadership is important. The second attribute is the firm, the health of the firm. And so people need to know not only is there security of where I'm working, is my firm financially successful, are they able to pay me, do I have the benefits of a healthy firm, but it's also the brand health of the firm. Am I working for a company that builds products or provides services that are in alignment to my values? Is there growth in the firm? So again, we try to ask them, how do you see your firm in terms of the health or the health of the brand, in terms of a strength or a weakness? And we ask them along this dimension. And they very kindly are willing to talk about that because it's something they care about. Is the firm successful enough that allows me to have the resources, whether that's budget or people or spending, that allows me to do my job? Or am I always challenged to try to find ways to do things? And so that's what the second pillar is. The third pillar starts to get more personal now. It's my personal career growth. In this firm, and I see what I'm currently doing, do I have an opportunity to grow? And so in many firms, I may have reached what we refer to in English as the glass ceiling. I'm at the top, I can see lots of space above me, but there's no place more. And or conversely, there's no career plan. Some firms are very progressive and they have a very progressive and well-documented career path planning that they discuss openly and transparently with the employee. So they know that if they perform along certain dimensions, there's never a guarantee, but there's a good probability that I can navigate to other assignments. In some companies, it's very vertical. If I do this position, I move up. In some companies, it's very planned to go horizontally, to broaden your skills, to come back to maybe your specialization over time. And so that we probe and ask them about how do they see their career growth and potential to grow as an individual and to grow within the firm. And that's the third pillar. The fourth pillar gets very personal, and that's your personal work and life balance. Does this firm allow me to not only do my job the way I'd like to do it, but am I doing it 24 hours, 365 days a year that precludes me from spending any time with my family or myself or investing in myself and health? Do they allow me flexible work hours? You know, it's a big popular thing now in many of the mature markets that when you have both couples working and perhaps have a family, the ability to not work from 9 to 5, but the ability to work in the environment to get the job done, to have that work-life balance, it's important. An interesting phenomenon, and we try to capture it, we see it in some of the global companies, because as you become more global, and you're a participative company, you want everybody to be included, and that becomes the challenge. So what might be 10 o'clock here in Brazil, it's 2 o'clock the next morning in Asia. And you want everybody to participate. Somebody is on a call at 2 in the morning somewhere in the world. Mm-hmm. I lived that personally. When I was the head of Chevrolet, and I would try to have the meetings that would inconvenience myself more than my team. I couldn't do it. I mean, it was impossible because it was a global job, and if I tried to involve everybody, somebody wasn't sleeping. And so that work-life balance is important. And it can be simple things about the distance of where my office and where I live to where I go to my office. We see this in markets like Mexico City, Sao Paulo, where you can be 3 hours of your day just in traffic to get from your house to your work. That's an important work-life balance. It may be different when you're 24 than when you're 44. And so what's interesting about the methodology, it's important to always continue to reevaluate, because during that lifetime, your priorities change and your pillars change. So as to the business leaders and to the HR managers, to go back and test retention, it's not a one-time thing. It's 22 when they enter the company or when they are exiting the company. The fifth and final pillar is total compensation. You know, is this firm competitive to the market? And it doesn't mean the highest. And what's interesting about our research and methodology, it really is about almost that order. And it almost plays out in every case that what's most important to people is leadership. Is where I'm working, do the people align to the same values that I have? And is it a place I want to work? Is the company healthy and successful and allows me to grow and the company to grow? Does it provide me with a personal career growth plan that fulfills my dreams and aspirations? Does it offer a work and life personal balance that I can stay in harmony? And is it a fair compensation? If it's not fair, I feel bad about my compensation, then I start to question leadership and that what their values, do they care about their people? It doesn't mean you have to be the highest paid, but am I offering a fair value package in relation to similar people in my market? And what we're finding in today's generation with internet, with so much transparency, the days of a quiet, secret compensation package, those days are over. And to be open and transparent with your employees is the best and only way to do that. So we use this tool to help guide companies to think through their most important asset, which is their people, to retain them at those important moments. And we actually believe that this is somewhat predictable. You should be able, if you're close enough to your employees with the other tools that you have available in your assessment, then you should be able to use this as one additional tool to say, do I have a risk of my talent that someone else can attract them from me? Or do I have a risk that they're naturally unhappy and that they could leave the firm? And that's the essence of it. And it's been a very interesting journey. And we continue to fine-tune our research in this regard as we learn by doing. But it continues to come back to the 5 pillars each time.
Very interesting. And actually, we have developed here in Brazil a program called Integrated Assessment, what we think that really can empower HR here. And why it can empower HR? And because it's a way to manage all the other information you already have, considering how your professionals are in the company. And also it can manage you to re-evaluate their information and values and values, everything about the company every time you check this, every time you test this. And we have actually 4 different situations to be tested. One we call the attraction assessment. It's when the professional come to your company, entering into the company. The second is the retention assessment. The third is development assessment, and the fourth is the succession assessment. I've shown this to you, and you know how it works and how you recheck this during time, right? There's a timeline, and we can check this over the time. How do you think you can relate the 5 pillars methodology with this tool we have here called integrated assessment?
Well, I think it fits perfectly. I mean, I think, both as a previous client working in the space, trying to always find the high performance team in every market. I think what was always challenging is we had many tools within our business, but to integrate them and bring them together was the challenge, because they may come from a different perspective, different point of view, and to connect them. So the integration, I think, is fantastic, and I think are very timely for this point in the market. And so I think the retention is another, the 5 pillars is another important tool in the toolbox to look at, to understand where your company is at. And it can fit very nicely with the existing material that they have in the company, whether it's an internal survey of satisfaction or whether it's the 360s or 180s, whatever the process, using the information that the firm currently has, or if they don't have, to create them for them. The retention is an opportunity to understand that. And I think I like a lot of things that for the HR leaders, to allow the candidates to speak honestly about their values. Then you need to respect the values of their feedback. So as long as you use the tool as a developmental tool to prepare them and to grow with that, to catch the assessment and where they are in their pillars, and not use it as a punitive aspect to say, wow, my employees are unhappy, we need to get, that's not the intention of this. The intention is total transparency as a growth opportunity tool, because you have to come back to the first premise. We approach this because we believe that the people, the talent, are the most important asset. They're as important as the capital you invest in your tools and your equipment as you do in your people. And the cost to continually regenerate and turn over your workforce is too expensive, and it's non-productive, and you lose opportunities. So to assess them when they're young, before you invest in training, is very important. To assess them mid-career and before you send them to the next phase is very important. And this, again, is one more, the pillars are one more tool in the toolbox to get a gauge of where your workforce is. And it's another dimension of retention. It's a dimension of potential flight risk. And I say that in certain markets, even more so. Brazil's a good market for this because there's so much external investment coming. And so people will invest with their new technologies, like we see in the auto industry. Well, what they don't have is people. So where do I immediately find people that are skilled in engineering and sales and marketing in a country, whether that's Russia, whether that's China, whether that's Brazil? You go to the existing manufacturers. You go to the existing people in market, and that puts pressure on them. So it's a very good tool for those that are stable in the market, that have a risk of flight risk, but it's also a very good tool for those that are leaders in the market to make sure they're in alignment, that things are in alignment to their workforce and the values of the company.
Very good. So now I expect us to sell this for the Brazilian market and the US market, and they can enjoy the result of applying this kind of tool to their management in their companies, right? And I want to do this with you. I hope you are with me.
I will.
Okay?
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here again, and I hope to have you as many times as possible.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Anna.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.